Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirits Saga video. And today we are finally back from Bandai Card Games Fest and excited to talk about the World Championship Top 16 that just happened not too long ago. And honestly, I think most of us are just really excited for Set 4 at this point, and there's a lot of exciting decks that are going to come out of it. Talk about that a little bit at the end, but with that out of the way, I'm just going to quickly go through these lists and kind of talk about where I think they might change a little bit going into the future. So let's dive right into it. Up first, we have our, what's this? No, that can't be right. It's a Pro Tour champion. That was Caleb. All right, your world's champion is Caleb Albert. Really, you can't write this perfectly enough. For those that missed it, top 4 was actually all 3 Pro Tour winners, which was just super cool to see. And in any trading card game, that is pretty much the perfect ending that you could ask for. Would have liked a Pro Tour champion versus champion finals, but Alex did end up scooping to his teammate who was just running a little bit hotter, and we did get to see Caleb again take it down overall on the Smag pile list. So what a crazy world, going all the way back to the Oceania boys or the Big Tix boys making the Smag and putting it on the kind of on the radar for people of just a good ramp-centric deck that has some high-end value in the Curse Dragon combos, the elephants, right? And then just a myriad of removal. We actually saw a lot of Smag decks in the top 16, but some of them were more control based, some of them just featured Smag, some of them were the full-on rainbow package with Mandala. A lot of crazy stuff happened, and yes, we do just like to use Smag as kind of the glue that holds it all together because of the reduction, because of the core, because of the draw, and all that good stuff, but it does beg the question, where does this fit going forward? And a huge shout out to Caleb, and of course, CC and the boys who grinded out. I just watched the Discord constantly getting in game, so very well earned, but, where is Smag going from here? I think it's a very good pick. It's still, nothing really changes about our top end and kind of where we want to be going. I think overall with some small changes, this is still going to be a list that can do well into the next format. Now, I will say you do get a little bit of splash damage from Ira because when it comes into play, you're just going to give your opponent all the draw because you generally want to go wider on this type of board, but you can always just sacrifice your own spirits at the same time if you know your opponent's going to be playing Ira, that you don't play into them just drawing a billion cards. Or maybe that's the bait, right? As we saw with some of the other decks that also had Mandala in there, maybe you just flood the board, go wide enough, they draw like 10 off Ira, and then you bring back down the Mandala and mill them out that way. So like that next level metagaming. What I really like about the core of this deck, which is always going to be essentially those 3 cards, right? Manticore, Smag, and Alrune. Alrune doesn't get enough love, but I talked about it in my own personal view of the list a while ago. Just absolutely amazing. It just does everything you want it to do, but really those 12 cards are the core, and you can kind of build where you want from there. Now, I want to give Caleb all the time in the world to talk about this, so we will be doing a World's Champion interview, Champions Corner, later on this week, but again, just wanted to give my really quick thoughts on it. Moving into top 4, again, we're just covering the unique archetypes overall. We have Long Dao, our Pro Tour winner from Europe, with the Luster / Fabled Beast package. We've seen this in previous times where it was like Fabled Beast shifting into Luster out of the sideboard, which was in the previous Pro Tour. Now this one had Luster Mane and the Genbu in the sideboard. Admittedly, only 2 instead of like the 4-2 split we saw previously and swapping them, but still just, hey, Fabled Beasts are Fabled Beasts. So what did it get out of the next set, right? Hundun is going to be an absolute monster. I think we are just going to go back to seeing, 4 of Genbu really being the staple. We are getting a little bit too much of that more mid-range density, so I would have really liked to see a little bit more early game coming out for yellow, but ultimately just non-stop unblockable shenanigans, non-stop making sure you're getting the bless. Like, there is so much value that we can look forward to with set 4 that I think that this is a good list to at least start with, of course, with the Genbus out of the sideboard. Also, I meant to mention earlier, but I will be doing like a here's 5 view decks for set 4 in a different video, but I at least want to talk about them high level and kind of where do I think they might position to, and again, where does this new meta look like for us? So again, huge shout out to Long Dao for his top 4. So moving on from there, we have Fairweather with the red-white control with the Nova top, and there's actually 2 different list in top 16 with this style. They were able to make it to top 8, and this is just more your traditional white control package with a couple splash options like the Nexus removal that we saw earlier on in the meta, and then the Nova at the top end to say, hey, I just want to heal a little bit. And with Nova being able to target itself, you really only need that one extra 6-cost Seagworm to make sure you're able to get the heal off. Now, of course, as we've seen in previous lists and in previous conversations, when you have Nova and you want to use that heal option, losing the Soul Core for suppression can be a little bit painful, but that's where Infinity Shield comes in, being able to give Elk the ability to block while still exhausted, so you set up that control without losing too much of that momentum in the game state. And of course, Nova being able to blow up 10k BP of the board on every swing is going to be very aggressive at closing out the game and just clearing spirits out of the way. So white control, I don't think this is going anywhere once people find a list, but I gotta say, I think this is one that I'm a little bit more worried of because of the mid-range white list that we're going to see, on top of getting massive splash damage from Ira, and then even the blue Hydra. And then of course we know that yellow can be a very rough matchup for it, so it's like every single angle you're going to be getting attacked at. So whoever can crack the white control deck first in set 4, I think will be rewarded for it, but I definitely feel like it is going to be the weaker out the gate of the options for it. So I think we're going to see a lot of that shift more towards the white bounce house or whatever community name the deck ends up getting. So with that, it's a perfect segment into Alberto's more white mid-range lists. Well, the Valkyrie Mist, the Hilders, right? We have the new androids and Valkyries out of set 4, which really lean itself well to, hey, I want to make sure that you don't have a board. And because Hilder can bounce just anything that your opponent would care about, where some of them only bounce 1 symbols, or Valkyrie Mist has the condition on it, right? You do have now the flexibility to choose which you're bouncing. So I think this deck is actually going to be gaining a ton of support in set 4 with how it all lines up. I do think you probably have to shave off like the Aegis to make room for some of the other stuff. Elephant being Elephant, that's like the one that like, hey, it's always just a great card for white, but I think it's going to be too slow for where the games want to be ending. And then of course, Turbo Rex is just going to be an MVP in the next format, being able to constantly bounce that ascend fodder that your opponent's trying to set up, or just make it the where it has to attack and they lose it. So I think a lot of the disruption is going to be the main focus out of set 4 as we think about these ascend targets and the value that they're going to get off of them. So I was really excited to see this list when I was going over the world's list, because I missed this one admittedly, but I do like that this sets us up very, very well for set 4. So Alberto, thanks. I'm going to steal that for a video, and it's kind of the template I was pushing into already. But again, I think this one with Hilder is going to be very, very important. Lastly, for the top 8, we have the red mid-range, which is kind of fitting that we have the, red core list that we saw out of Pro Tour 3 kind of pop up, where we just got to see Trident Dragon doing work, and probably did a lot of work this past weekend as well, because the Nova and the removal that you have with Andromeda, getting Nexus, it's just so good at red removal type of stuff. And then of course a couple Apollo Dinos as well. So this really lends itself well to, I'm going to draw a bunch of cards, remove a bunch of your threats, and just try to close out the game that way. So another one that I think that when we look to where does this kind of navigate or shift, we have the red mid-range style of things, and we have like the red Star Dragon style of package, that I think we are going to see more of a shift ultimately towards Ira. I think that is just going to be the better option by a mile compared to, also shout out to Pterosaurs, right? Getting support in the set with the new X-Rare with the anti-balance. I think that one's just not as good as it needed to be. Very interesting card, but I think that Ira and some more of the mid-range package that we've seen out of red is really going to take the spotlight. So another list I think itself is going to transition well into the set 4 meta. And again, nice to see just a, let's keep things fair style of red deck did make it into top 8. Moving into top 16, woo, purple. I know a lot of people were smack talking purple going into it, but it is nice to see a purple deck claw its way up to top 16. And of course, with my boy Viper Dragon, I still love this card, the ability to just tap, target attack something, kill it, remove it. We have the Nemesis in Blacklands value, right? There's just so much that you can be doing in this style of deck that I think that purple is always going to be an option that if you're comfortable with it, it can reward you, because at the end of the day, drawing a bunch of cards and core thefting for lethal, that never gets old. That always feels great. Also, we need to get a core drain promo at some time. It's not in this list, but shout out to the fact that we haven't gotten a core drain alt art at any point, but hopefully sometime soon, because I think that the core removal strategy is also going to be very important looking into kind of this next meta and where it can align. So purple in general, where do I think it's going to go? I think Serpent's got a huge lift, which again, a lot of these purple lists, I think one of the key problems we've seen is that, it's your Beldegor, Costume is like the newest addition, Black Lance is always a 4 of, Lamorak is always a 3 to 4 of, Nemesis in these more mid-range specific decks have always been a 2 to 3 of, right? The purple core really hasn't had a chance to expand out beyond that, but now in set 4, we have the Reanimate or Dredge style of deck that got a very nice X-Rare for what they want to be doing, and then Rixa, the double symbol that can bring back Black Lance for free, is fantastic. I think it is a little slow ultimately, so it doesn't get the pure value that we want out of it because it's just gonna be a little bit slower than what we want. Maybe we splash in some green cards to make it out a little bit easier, but I think that one does struggle a little bit compared to the other double symbols that we got. But if you see it early, if you line it up and you get to cycle those Black Lances for free, you're going to win that game 10 out of 10 times. So huge shout out to Sampo with the top 16 finish for purple midrange. And then, of course, I just had to stop and appreciate this list from Marvin. So we did, as I mentioned, we saw a couple different Smag decks that were kind of more rainbow. We did see a couple Mandala decks that were, again, this one featuring Victory Oath as well. And this is funny because it's something that we've talked about at the very start of set 3 meta, right? And we talked about, well, if you do the math, if you line up like the Victory Oaths and the Mandalas plus the 1 Crush Trigger, that's going to be X amount of cards. And then likely any deck that's not white control immediately is milled out by that because they've already drawn a couple other cards with other effects. So it became a very real threat. And again, I'd be love to know, and Marvin, if you're watching this video, let me know in the comments, how many people you actually got out through mill, because it's one of those things you can just catch your opponent off guard with. And also, super shout out to the sideboard here, right? Just 2 more Mandalas to really say like, hey, if I know that I need to go all out on the mill plan, I got 2 more block golems and 2 more Mandalas, like let's just go for it. So huge shout out to see some mill decks getting to get the spotlight. And I think we all can agree with Roger, which is one of the new cards in set 4, getting to just be an additional mill outlet while staying in color for blue to give you those other reductions. I think it's very reasonable that we are going to see a more blue aligned deck in the set 4 meta. Again, set 3 was really the introduction to blue, so understandable that it's getting more splash in other areas like we have, or like we did see with green in set 2. But I am very much looking forward to set 4 and kind of seeing where this shifts and if we can get back into a, Roger plus Mandela meta, or is it going to be more of these control strategies where Mandela is just good enough by itself, you get some Nexus and you just mill out your opponent that way, right? I'm very curious to see which one is a focus point for the community going forward. But for me personally, of course, I will be leaning towards the Hydra because that's my favorite. But I think I will be trying with a mono blue mill as well. And of course, I got to give a special shout out to the father of Mandongo, as we called it, or the white control splashing Mandala that we saw way earlier on in the format. I definitely think got a lot of people talking about Mandala in these control lists that ultimately led to the world's impact. So huge shout out to Anthony for that one. And again, shout out to CC and the boys taking the championship down and also taking down the couple lists into top 16 as well. So huge performance all around. And again, this is more just the white control shell like we saw in the previous Atlanta Grand Open. And I know there was also some played in the Pro Tour 3 meta, and just really decided to bring a safe and comfortable pick for Worlds that landed them a top 16 finish. So again, I think white control in its pure form today is going to get shifted a little bit away from kind of what we've seen previously, but Mandala is absolutely here to stay. So with that, a quick recap of the top 16, and then also the 2 formats that format staples, in my opinion, that I'm going to be just kind of looking forward to, right? So it's the what's next from here. So of course, at the time of recording, we have not gotten the official year 2 news yet. I'm being told that it's supposed to be posted very soon, be it today or tomorrow, which is really weird. Normally they do Friday updates, so I'm personally waiting for Friday. But I think for a lot of people, where I would be starting with my set 4 testing, and again, we'll be doing a video that covers a bunch of lists here soon. But I'm going to do the champion interview, then we're going to do the deck list, and then I have some other videos I want to get to as well. I really want to focus on both Ira and Hydra, right? Now, when we think about Ira, it does need an ascend cost of 6 to get its full effect, but truth be told, a lot of decks have 6 costs or can easily shift in a 6 cost to get Ira's full effect. That, again, is going to be something that is going to catch your opponent off guard and draw you a bunch of cards. I think if you play into this too hard, it is going to be a, hey, I lost the game on the spot because they played the Ira. So now is this going to be a card consideration that is everybody either running it or have an action plan? Is Counter Sword coming back main deck of all crazy things? Because yes, they would still get the when summon, but it is still a threat by its own, right? The fact that it has the attack, and if you combine it with the new Nexus, it also refreshes itself if they try to block it. Ira is ending the game, and I think that's ultimately what Battle Spirits needed. We needed these high-powered, double-symboled spirits that can kind of force the game to end, because we have seen some games that just get into a weird stalemate, or going back to the World Championship where it would have been really nice if someone had an unblockable or some way to break the board sooner. That game would have not dragged out for, I think it was like a 55-minute game one or something ridiculous is what it was. But I think Ira is going to obviously be a staple in the red focus strategies, because then you get the reduction as well. But if we're going to, need to sacrifice some things off of our board, and we don't need to draw as many cards, then we're totally fine just paying the 9 for it. And then on the other hand, we have the Deep Sea Emperor Hydra. Totally not biased, I promise, but I think it is just going to be an absolutely insane card going into this set 4 meta. Now, you do need to ascend off an Aberration, which means you do want to be in that blue heavy deck. We have Squallow, we have the Nexus that lets us ramp. So we did get to fix the core issue, like the core resource issue of blue in set 4, which is really nice. But the one thing I will say is that you do really need to get this to 6 cores, which shouldn't be that hard going forward now, because we did get the ramp, because you want this to be a 13K. And then with Raid 2, this means you are not only going to kill 3 things effectively if you go with all 3, but you're also going to mill them out, right? So yes, they are going to likely sacrifice off their smaller things, try to get a block, but, a strong draw giving us also a 3K pump that you're going to be running a 4 of, right? As long as you know that, hey, if they have a battle trick, I have to go up to 16K, Hydra is going to be swinging and ending games as well. And it's really important that this does not have a when summon. So I think that's where kind of we see the meta split, right? On one hand, you have a very powerful when summon that people are going to be ready with the counter swords or other powerful when summon effects. And then the Hydra just says, hey, sorry, I'm coming down. This is what I'm doing. Goodbye to your board, right? And then we also got the TP card that mills extra cards, which I don't think is going to be needed. I know that Hydra has the mill option, and maybe if they wall up too hard, that's your alternate win con, and that's fine. But I would hope if there's a world where I attack 3 times, they lose 3 guys, and then they lose 3 more guys because they had to block to not die, that game should still end on the next turn, with or without mill, right? It has to. So it's not milling as much potentially by itself, but there are also going to be games where you just catch your opponent off guard and they're like, oh, Ira, board wipe you, take the damage, and you're staying at 3 life now with Absolute Ice Shield. Okay, Absolute Ice Shield, go back up. Okay, Hydra swing, mill you 9, lose your guy, swing for game. Hydra is going to be super interesting to see how it plays out. But then, of course, there's also Mill, I think, got a huge boost in set 4 that, people either love or hate. But if you love it, I think you're going to be eating very good. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Which World's Championship deck are you looking forward to using as kind of a starting point for set 4 testing? Or are you just really excited for the new double symbols to kind of take the spotlight? Again, let me know in the comments below. But with that, my friends, we are back. It is time to talk about more Battle Spirits Saga. I'm, of course, very excited to get that year 2 news whenever we do. Fusion World's coming out later this month, which I'm excited to help out locally. I'll do a couple unboxing videos, but largely I think that's going to stay offline, or I might, dip my toes in the digital client if it's good enough. But hey, I'm ready to get my hands on set 4. We just have to wait, 3 more weeks at this point, and we'll get to open some new packs and do an unboxing of the Evangelion promo, alt arts, and all that good stuff. So with that, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.